All right, good morning and welcome to Mo Knows. This is a mic check, and I learned how to do this. Do not tell me you're first. All right, good morning and welcome to Mo Knows. All right, and I figured out a way to do that without having to do it when I got here live. So you first hanging out on my phone. Okay. Good morning. Ting, ting, ting. Okay, here we are. You guys win. You absolutely win. I have now made a playlist for Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor. Um, I did not want to cover this, but you guys, the influencers, beat me. And the reason why you beat me and you've I feel defeated is because you guys have sent me videos, um news articles, updates along the way. So it's obvious that you want my opine on it. So we're going to proceed as you wish. I didn't feel like turning on the light, but I might have no other choice but to turn on the light. Hang on, let me just do the lights that are over here. You know I can't get that whistle out of my head. Shout out to Miss G. Ooh. Can't believe she just said that too. I went to bed on that last night. I went to bed 2 nights on a row. Okay. That's an inside joke. You gotta be in it to win it. Okay. The last we left, uh, Breonna Taylor's family held a press conference and they were demanding for the prosecutor to release the tapes of the grand jury proceeding. I can't help it either. I'm still laughing too. Sad, really sad. How this stuff, how this stuff goes down. Really sad. Okay, so here we are. Um, I gotta walk you through the past. Okay, so they were demanding for the release of the grand jury proceedings because the prosecutor put his foot in his mouth. And there's no other way to describe it but him putting his foot in his mouth. And he during his press conference, this is why prosecutors seldom say too much in an active investigation. And these press conferences, this is why gag orders get imposed, because one misspoke of the word can cause a downward appearance, a downward fiasco. And that's what happened to him. When he got the indictment for wanton endangerment, uh, he went forward, held a press conference, and tried to explain what occurred during the grand jury proceedings, which are secret. And I gave y'all my takes on part one that they were secret. So I was like really surprised that this stuff was coming out. So let's deal with the first things first. Out of that really out of that grand jury proceedings, three officers were presented. Do we even really know if three officers were presented? Okay, let's just say this: one officer was was charged with wanton endangerment, and that officer is Hankison. Okay, so he was found. He was indicted, got a true bill. Now, I pointed out a few things. Maybe I didn't do it on a live. I should have went back and listened to my live. But I definitely, hey, Gears, um, I definitely opined on this part. When you get an indictment, right? When you go forward with charges, they go from the highest charge down. So if there was a charge, good morning, Carla. If there was a charge of murder, any of those things, they would have been the top counts. So you would be count one, murder, blah, 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 blah. Count two, murder, blah, 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 blah. And it would have been count three. It would have went on and on and on like this. First thing I noticed was that the counts for the wanton endangerment were counts one and two and three. If there had been counts before that for, let's say, murder, attempted murder, uh, egregious anything, they would have they would have superseded wanton endangerment. Wanton endangerment would have been charged 13, 12, 11, or something, and the jurors would have came back and said we have a true bill on counts 11, 12, and 13. Instead, they had counts on 1, 2, and 3. So it was painstakingly obvious that there were no other charges filed in my interpretation of the information that was provided. So this is why I was bewildered when the family's attorney, once again, Ben Crump, was standing up there demanding when it's obvious. Um, Maybe this is the way they have to do things inside the media, but I just think that people are not that silly, and you should explain it very clearly. That no other charges were presented because these accounts 1, 2, and 3. Not allude to you believe there were no other charges counted. But anyway, the officer who was charged, indicted, has now been arrested, and they got his mugshot. So I think I made it my thumbnail. I don't know. I tried to make it my thumbnail. So you'll see him up there. He has pled not guilty to the indictment. So let's move on to why this is important today that we're still with release the tapes. Yesterday, a juror, an anonymous juror, by way of his attorney, filed a motion. Where is my and I'm gonna bring you up the motion. I think I might have closed out on that. So give me a minute. The thumbnail didn't work? Okay. It'll be here afterwards then. Um, it's so hard to get the thumbnail situation. I should have uploaded it last night. Then I had time to sit in the system. Adobe, where are you? We're past his indictment. We're past the warrant. Oh, let me just show you the indictment again. So let me open up the indictment. And then I'm gonna open something else, the indictment. And I want to do, I'm mad at myself because the grand juror motion. Okay. Okay. I should have did the, I just want to show you the indictment again. I may have pointed this out on the first go round on Release the Tapes Part 1. But I'm definitely going to show it to you now. Let me see what you're saying. Good morning, Miss G. Boo, hoo, hoo, hoo. Lady, I can't with you right now. Okay, so here it is. This is the indictment. No, this is the motion. This is something else. Hold on, let me go over here to this side. This is the indictment, which is considered a true bill. And it came out with counts 1, 2, and 3. Normally you would have had like all the counts and they would have been like no true bill, no true bill, and that's it. Uh, Also the fact that it says indictment here. Okay, so that's number one. I just wanted to make that point. We're gonna move on now to the grand jurors. So yesterday, September 28th, the court received, Jefferson Circuit Court received a motion to release the grand jury transcript, recordings, reports, and for declaration of rights pursuant to KRS 418.040. What does that mean? Normally, grand jurors are not permitted to speak on the matter that they were serving as a grand juror. Generally, when there is a case, grand juries don't just hear one case. They hear a series of cases for a period of time when they're sworn in for duty. Sometimes grand juries hear one particular case, but several. Good morning, Sassoma. Good morning, San Francis. Dre Day, Gears the Truth, Carla, it's beautiful, Jason, and all the rest of the influences hanging in a mist somewhere, somehow. Um, Normally, a grand jury doesn't get to speak about the case afterwards. They're held if it's a case that has many moving parts and will require several different arrests and stuff. You may stay sworn in um, to hear the different facets of that particular matter that involves different legs to it. So here, this juror. So I'm thinking Ben Crump was effective in the um, calling the press conference and smoking out a juror to seek legal so that they could come forward and say what they heard. So here, the grand juror is not identified, so that makes the person anonymous. Comes, so they had a court date for this. Sorry, I'm all in the wrong screen looking at what I'm showing you. So please take notice that the following motion will be made on Monday, October 5th at 9 a.m. before this court, and this would be the issue. The plaintiff, I'm going to go to the last page because I didn't do this. I wanted to see what attorney submitted this. At one moment, I didn't care. So this is Kevin, whatever, whatever. So we're gonna come back to this because I want to see what legal team he's with, but I won't be doing that on the live because I ain't got that much time. I have an 8:30 meeting this morning at work, so I don't got time to deal with that. But here we are. Um, so they filed this motion. You could download this motion on the computer. If you ask me for it, I'll email it to you. It's not a problem. Ask me in the comments below. Hit the like button since y'all here because you like my vibe. Oh, I love the 18 people that didn't like my vibe. Y'all should unsubscribe instead of coming in here causing a ruckus in the morning. It's too early for this. Um, they have a right to disclose information. So as you can see here, what the relief that the person is seeking is right here at the beginning of the petition. Um, they're asking to release any and all recordings of the grand jury pertaining to what is commonly known as Breonna Taylor's case that resulted in indictment number 20CR1473, which is the Commonwealth versus Brett Hankison, pursuant to RCR 5.24. Grand juror further petitions this court for a declaration of rights pursuant to KRS 418.040. Specifically, grand jury seeks for the court to make a binding declaration that grand juror and any additional members of this grand jury has the right to disclose information and details about the process of the grand jury proceedings held in Jefferson County, Kentucky, regarding the above case known as Breonna Taylor case and any potential charges presented or not related to the events surrounding this matter. So you see, the grand jurors couldn't just openly come out and tell what happened because they are sworn not to. So they have to seek in court the ability to do so. So the question becomes, why did the DA feel like he had the right to come forward and talk about the grand jury proceedings, right? And he talked in such a way that this is what hung him. Oh, I say hung him. I'm going to go back to the document. Hang on a second. Let me go back to the grand juror was a member. So notice how the paragraphs are numbered. We spoke on this before. Inside, this is to keep up. People would refer to these numbers. So in number 1, the grand juror was a member of the grand jury for the month of September in Jefferson County. So there was documents attached to confirm that his client was actually one of those jurors. Beginning on or about September 21st and until September 23rd, grand juror and other grand jurors were tasked um, with being the grand jury for the presentation by the Office of the Attorney General in purportedly all matters related to the death of Miss Breonna Taylor. Remember, the only evidence that a grand jury can consider is the evidence provided. Any juror, in anytime you serve as a juror, you can't make up your own evidence. You can only make a determination based on the evidence provided in the court. 3, subsequent to the above referenced indictment. So this is subsequent. This is after the indictment. Attorney General Daniel Cameron held a press conference to publicly announce the charges against Mr. Hankison and to further announce that there would be no charges against Sergeant Mattingly and Detective Crossgrove. Okay, this is very important. I want you guys to pay attention to the language. Paragraph 4. Attorney General Cameron made many definitive remarks during his press conference. Among them, he stated that the office's investigation found, so that means the the office that was bringing this forward found. And the grand jury agreed. This is what's hanging him. Hanging him. This is what is the main issue that they found, and the grand jury agreed. Okay? That Madeline and Crossgrove were justified in the return of deadly fire after having been fired upon by Kenneth Walker. Based on this language, I'm not confident that the jury was given the opportunity to come to that as their findings. It always appeared to me that the Attorney General failed to charge the two officers, Sergeant Mattingly and Crossgrove, because he felt that they were justified in their actions. And he presented, and I'm sure that's what we're going to hear, he presented that to them. So he didn't give them the opportunity, them being the jury, the opportunity to come to that conclusion. He already came to that conclusion when he didn't file against these two men because he felt it was justified. And that was, if you, and I know I said this in my last go round with Release the Tapes. I said I do not believe that he presented them with the option, and I was going to go back and listen to his press conference. When questioned about whether he made a recommendation to the grand jury, very carefully, that he made a recommendation to the grand jury, this is what the Attorney General stated. We're in paragraph 5. Grand jury proceedings are secret. And so I'm not going to get into the specifics of details about the proceeding. What I will say is that we presented all of the information, and they ultimately made a determination about whether to charge. So, this statement right here, when we hear the tapes on Wednesday, we will be listening carefully to see if they were given the opportunity to charge the officers. Because what he's saying here is that he gave the choice to the grand jury and they chose not to charge. In this instance, they decided to indict Detective Hankison. This was the actually this was the hanging gun on that press conference, how he worded this. And this is why they were demanding for the releasing of the tapes. Because this is creative wordplay. Either you gave them the charge, or you presented charges to the grand jury that you wanted them to consider, or you gave the grand jury all of the evidence and gave them the opportunity to create their own charges. That is two different things. I'm going to repeat it again. Either he gave the grand jury all of the evidence and said to them, you decide what charges should be put out against these officers, or he just presented uh, wanton endangerment. So what happens? They filed this. They filed this motion, and it sounds as if the court agreed with the jurors with this and demanded that he present the information. And we move forward to breaking news. Last night, there was an update, and the prosecutor has decided that he will release the tapes on Wednesday. All right, let me just check off that I hit all my talking points. So the Kentucky Attorney General will release the recordings of the grand jury's proceedings that led to no charges for the death of Breonna Taylor. So we will be watching these to see if they actually were given information or given uh, the rights, actually given the authority to compose their own charges. Grand juries can and often are given evidence, and they get to pick the grand charges. The release is scheduled for Wednesday, and I believe it's on because an article I read said on a judge's order. So I'm of the belief, and if I'm wrong, I'll correct it in the comments below. I'm of the belief that the judge received this and the judge ordered it, because here is the statement that was released by the prosecutors. Our prosecutors presented all the evidence, even though the evidence supported that Sergeant Mattingly and Detective Crossgrove were justified in their use of force after having been fired upon by Kenneth Walker, and then there's a comma. The only charge recommended was wanton endangerment. So again, this is a play with words, but this is their statement. They're making a recommendation. The grand jury has the authority to provide a true bill or not. So I'm going to read that statement again. Our prosecutors presented all the evidence, even though the evidence supported that Sergeant Mattingly and Detective Crossgrove were justified in their use of force after having been fired upon by Kenneth Walker. The only charge recommended was wanton endangerment. Okay. Another part of their release is that they have no concerns with grand jurors sharing their thoughts on the presentation. We don't care that they have no concerns about it. The grand jurors understood their role, and they also understand by this person filing this that they were prohibited from speaking on this publicly because it was secret, and they had to go into a court to ask the court to usurp that, to allow them to speak, because they could be arrested, charged, whatever it is, for breaking this. So this is why it resulted in them, or one or all, because it alludes to there being one, but it's applicable to all, giving them the opportunity to breach that, whatever 410 KRS 410 or whatever number this is must be binding to them. The KRS 418.040. So that's it. Guys, I have a special section in the lounge that has been named in honor of Queen Miko, the Truth Seeker. Those of you who want to hang out with her in that section of the lounge are always welcome to join her. It's a VIP section. Your entry is upon her consent. It's exclusive to her. Uh, that's a side note for those of you who understand that I have a lounge here. Um, so him saying that we have no concerns about who gives information is disgusting, because he doesn't have the right or the privilege to tell them they can't. They had to seek it from the court as they have. One thing that's very important, he does state in their official uh, release that this may compromise the ongoing federal investigation. I think that is very interesting because he's now pushing. This is somebody that, I'm going to use your YouTube words, is failing to take accountability. And by doing so, he has pushed all his responsibilities onto other folks. He's pushed this responsibility onto the jurors in this case by saying, um, they chose not to. They agreed with us and chose not to. So that's why that language about the jurors agreeing with him is the language in the motion is what's the problem. Everything here is contradicting what actually happened. And so among them, he stated that his office's investigation found, and the grand jury agreed, that Madeline and Crossgrove were justified in the return of deadly fire after having been fired upon by Kenneth Walker. There's no evidence to support his statement, and that's why we're going to the um release the tapes and let us see what actually happened. These are the two conflicting statements. Either they found and agreed with him, or, as in his latest statement, the only charge recommended was wanton endangerment. Then he lied at the press conference. That's what this will boil down to. The fact that this may be considered, so as he's shifting blame and the responsibility, he first says, hey, I'm the prosecutor and I decided. He should have just came out and straight up and said, I felt that this was self-defense, which I agree with him for these particular officers and their role that they played in this thing. So I'm saying Monica Mo Justice agrees with him, but he should have stood there on the dais and said, we did not present that. We found that it was justifiable and I did not bring charges forward for that. Or did he bring charges forward and you, jurors, did not listen thoroughly and realize that you had the charge to do it? Being a juror is a very important role. Do you know how you become a juror? You become a juror by registering to vote. That's where they pull the jurors from. That's why it is important to be a registered voter. You know what a registered voter gets to do? They get to sit in these proceedings, be selected for these proceedings. This is another reason why being a registered voter is important, because we keep saying that there's injustice out there, and the injustice is there because we're not part of the process. So, um, that's just my spill on that. Uh, I'm not truly convinced of how this plays a role, other than he wasn't fully forthwith with us. But this has been the case since they got here. Secondly, so that's one instance when he's presenting the case to them. Now he wants us to believe that the federal investigation, that there's a federal investigation and they may be looking at this. So he doesn't want to taint them. What are they looking at? Are they looking at the two issues that I have been advocating for? That the officer, and I think I wrote his name down this morning, Joshua C. James. He's the person, James, he's the person, he's the officer, and he's a detective. So Detective Joshua James is the person who swore out this search warrant. Where are his charges? Are they expected on the federal level? So the next time people are holding press conferences, we need to find out from them, are we to expect James to be prosecuted on a federal level or on a state level? Just help us out with that, because he's the person that requested this warrant. Now, I did go back through the warrant again with my good eyes on, and this is what I'm getting a feeling of now. And based on some other stuff you guys are sending me, a thing I missed in the process of looking at this warrant, because I just thought the warrant was for materials, but the warrant was also for the bodies, right? And the bodies means the persons. So there were persons listed on here that were going to get arrested, period. So Breonna Taylor was going to be that evening arrested. It just happens that she was taken in dead or alive. No pun intended, but she was clearly named as one of the people that was part of that warrant. So she was going down with this. That's why people keep saying, um, she was part of this, she was part of it. She was on the warrant. So she, more than likely, if she hadn't been killed, she would have been arrested that evening because she was on this warrant. And that warrant was for and or the person or persons. They were to seize the following. They were to seize them and bring them back to them. So that means that she was physically going to be she was going to be arrested that day. Um, in addition, question came in: were multiple apartments searched on this day? So my answer is going to be, and these are good questions that came out. Um, if so, listen to my answer. If multiple premises were searched on the day that Breonna Taylor was killed, this specific warrant, the one that I've been looking at, was only for 303 Springfield, unit number 4. And the descriptions in that warrant was just for that. So if there were other for that same day that they signed off on, I do not have that information available to me. The only information I have would lead you to believe that they were only going to 303 Springfield, and that was Breonna Taylor's apartment, and that she was one of the people listed on this warrant. In addition, 2 cars were listed on the warrant, which was the 2017 Dodge Charger and the 2016 Chevrolet Impala. And the Impala was registered, uh, has Kentucky registration, and was owned and well, was operated by all these people, but it was owned by Breonna Taylor. Okay. Are there any questions at this juncture from you guys? And for those of you who are watching this on replay, if you have any questions, put it in the comments. It helps me do my research and come back to you with more information. So that was one question: were there multiple apartments? And there was another question: who should be charged in Breonna Taylor's case if it's not these officers? So that's why I found the officer's name that I believe should be charged, and that's Joshua James. And let me just clarity: the officer Joshua James or any other officer involved in securing the no-knock warrant on 3/12/20. Now I am understanding that This warrant is part of a bigger case. So when I found discrepancies that talk about December arrest and so on and so forth, it didn't make sense to me because we're looking at this warrant in isolation of it being in and of itself when it is not. It is not of itself, it's of a bigger case. So it's one component of the whole. They just did a shizzy job of connecting it in their affidavit, which goes back to an initial concern I have that police officers should be working with district attorneys in order to submit affidavits to the court. What does that mean? It means you will have a concise connection to the data. You'll have somebody saying to a detective, okay, I understand what you're saying, but I need to write this clearer so that the judge knows specifically what we're looking for. This right here is not specific enough. This right here needs more clarity. Um, and you will always hear attorneys say that. We need to be more detailed. The details in the pudding. Um, why are we doing this? They ask a lot of questions because they understand that. Did you hear about the ballistic test not backing the claim the boyfriend shot the officer? In terms of the ballistics, hold on. Let me see. What did I get on the ballistics? I do have something on the ballistics. All that chatter from that. I read that article that you're talking about, but I wanted to go specifically to what they said. Maybe I did it when I was on. There's a video missing here, guys, because I have to cut it up where um, we had a member from the chat join us on a panel, join me on a panel, and he was discussing things, and we talked about the ballistics. I'm gonna say this: the ballistic report, from what I garnered, which officer was in that officer? It wasn't Mattingly, it's the other officer. So let me get his name. That detective Crossgrove, it was Detective Crossgrove's bullets that killed her. So I'm gonna say this. That's all they presented. They didn't say anything about the boyfriend. They were very specific to it was Detective Crossgrove's a shot that killed her. But what they were saying, and we'll go through the scenario again, just to make sure that it's clear. An officer. Uh, so we're gonna start from the perspective of I'm sleeping in my bed. It's me and my partner. We're sleeping in the bed. My partner has the right to carry a gun. He's got all his paperwork in order. We hear a thump at the door or whatever and are startled from our sleep or our good night. And he reaches for his gun and shoots at whoever enters the apartment. Okay? He's in his right to do that. That's his right. He's a gun carrying person. Next thing you know, on the flip side of it, the officers who are there, Crossgrove, Mattingly, and the rest of the team, Hankison, and all those other people, right? They're there executing a warrant. In their perspective, the person's behind this door that they're about to bust open without knocking and announcing themselves is somebody who's a suspect, right? So they go in there and the suspect shoots at them. They have a right to return deadly force and shoot back. They're being shot at in their offices. So in this scenario, each person that was shooting that day was in their right to shoot. Mr. Walker was in his right to shoot because he's got all his stuff in order, and he shot at whoever intruded in the place he was at. They had a right to return fire because they are officers executing a no-knock warrant, and in that provision, they were there. Now, if there are issues with the no-knock warrant, you have to go back to who created the no-knock warrant, because that's where all of the fault lies. Had it not been for the no-knock warrant, these officers would not have been there barging in doors. Kenneth Walker would not have shot at them as they entered into the apartment, and they would not have had to return fire. So it all goes back to the beginning. That's why, in telling stories around here, and I'm going to be broad now, taking it out of just this case, but in whole, you need to know the whole story before you can make a conclusion. They said all the officers had Flint Cali handguns, so that cleared the officers of friendly fire. But in fact, one of the officers was issued a 9mm. Okay, I agree on that. I still don't see how there is no accountability for that officer. Which officer? The one that shot her? The one that shot her? The one that shot her? He can't be held. He may not have shot her had it not been for Kenneth shooting first. Now, the question is, and I wrote this down, so just have y'all know, this is a big question for me. Did Kenneth admit that he shot first? Because that I need to know. The one who got the warrant. Yeah, the officer who got the warrant, that's the problem. So that's why I want to know, are we looking for state charges on him, or are we led to believe that that the state is not going to charge him because they are waiting on the uh on the federal, because that's very important. Has the state already said, I'm not going to charge because we're waiting on the federal charges? And remember, these federal charges are always going to stem out of something that has to do with uh, violating somebody's civil rights in the process of it. So that's the big thing. The big thing is the warrant. But I'm going to put this but out here. If that warrant was standing alone based on the story, I was more confident Friday that that warrant was an issue. I'm not that confident that the warrant is the sole issue here anymore, based on the fact that it's part of a bigger case. So that is why they were willing to give plea deals to, because people have come out and said, oh, they were gonna, they took the other guy, Jamiquis, and they offered him a deal and so on and so forth. They offered him a deal to turn him because they need to evidence, because public opinion has Breonna as being innocent EMT nurse, EMT a person. So they now need to have these guys demonstrate that she was not this innocent EMT person, that she was involved in a drug cartel of some sort, and the EMT was her she just happened to be an EMT worker who was involved in it. My personal opinion, taking it out of, so this is just based on what I've seen so far, based on my experience, based on my knowledge of the hood when I lived inside the hood. This is what I feel. I feel like Breonna met a guy, Jamarquise, probably was dealing with a guy, Jamarquise, having sex with him, whatever, whatever, and she started renting cars for him. They had some kind of relationship going on there, but I don't adequately feel that she was part of his activity in terms of helping with the operation from the day by day. These guys creatively always, man is the best manipulator of woman. And when he wants to get something, he will use a woman to his best ability to achieve his ultimate goal. And this is what happens to women every day when you get acquainted with male manipulation and you feel like it's for love. You will do anything for the love of that man. We've seen people send men $10,000 just because, without even physically ever seeing a man or anything, just for the love of that man. We've seen people sacrifice themselves just for the love of a man, that appreciation. So I believe here, as stuff continues to fall out, that we're going to see a young woman who may have been in a relationship with the guy at some point, and she provided him with the things he asked for. Maybe he didn't have good credit and couldn't rent a car. So she rented cars for him that he used. All right. There appears to be some murder that's attached to rental of cars for this same group that uh, initiated this whole investigation. Now, people will always say, keep it straight to the facts that are before you, right? This is also a fact before you because it will explain the warrant. And that becomes important to me because I've been calling for whoever put this warrant together to be arrested. So there may be other issues behind or other facts that we don't have privy to right now that may make us think differently down the line. Right now, I support arresting the officer in relations to drafting this no knock warrant. Um, but there may be other things involved. Do you think it matters who shot the officer? The ballistics is being questioned because friendly fire was ruled out based on the lie that all officers carry 40 thing. This is what I'm gonna say. We often get bogged down in facts that are not relevant. So yes, they are facts, but they may not be relevant for the end all for the end all decision. The end all decision is each man that fired his weapon that day had a right to do so. Kenneth had a right to shoot at those officers who bust through his door because at the time he shot at them, he thought they was intruders without the ability to hear or present that this was not a no-knock situation. If it had been they announced himself and he shot at the officers after they said, I'm an officer, he would be in trouble. But the fact that they didn't, he's not in trouble. So that no knock warrant is working in Kenneth Walker's favor as well because everyone is saying they didn't announce themselves. For the one fool that came out and said, I heard them announce themselves. All right, you one out of many. Maybe they had to announce themselves because other stuff was going on. According to the person that came on my panel the other day, he was explicit in telling us that the officers were arguing with neighbors and stuff. Um, so what I'm trying to emphasize, Gears, is that yes, facts are important. And it's important to have all the facts when you're dealing with a case. But then you have to say to yourself, which facts are relevant to proceed with? Um, here's the thing. I'm gonna tell y'all, uh, taking the time out and taking a step back because maybe people will understand better. Recently, I was a victim of doxing. Okay, I have a service in place so that if I'm doxed or whatever, somebody goes, y'all use docs, looks into my personal information. Doxing means looking into somebody's personal information and making it private. There was a breach in my personal information. Okay. And I received a notification from a service that I use to monitor breaches. Okay. So when they notify me, I call them on the phone. I'm like, yes, I need to know who did this or whatever, right? The following day, when I finally get all the smoke clears, what do they tell me? You're insured for this and you're insured for that, and we're going to work on it. I'm like, you're not going to work on who did it? They're not concerned on who did it. They're concerned on their job is to protect my interests. So they are not going to go looking for who did what. They're going to make sure that I'm protected. Give y'all another give y'all another case that's dear and near to y'all, because I don't give a damn no more. That whole bromance scam, right? The fraud, the police departments look at justice, what it looks like. What's the end game to stuff? Can we redeem somebody's money? Is all they were ever interested in. And I don't know how many times I made that abundantly clear. That was my goal as well as the goal of them, right? People want to always find out who did what. In these intricate scams that go over the internet that involve several states, that are interstate, that's what they call it, interstate transactions, right? Would then require the feds. You think the feds are interested in some of this stuff? Now, pornography is an issue that I will wholeheartedly deal with because that's an issue. People are seldom in these criminal matters. They are always interested in doing the least amount of work for justice. And it takes time. So those of you that want to dub me slow justice, justice is not swift. In her hand, she holds that sword. And the reason why she holds it is supposed to be swift, but it is not, because they balance and weigh out the rights of all the parties. Good morning, Miss Love. I believe you will find this particular video very important to your statement. You can go in, and when this is over, rewind, and hopefully you'll find all the information that you're looking for. But this is what I'm gonna say for me, Monica Mo Justice. I generally go on my own research. I don't really take, and people know here, I don't really take the workings and the happenings of other media folks to work on my, to give me a determination on how things go. But I have viewed that clip because it was sent to me by an influencer, and I viewed it this morning. But I was already I was gonna come live last night, but I chose to just wait until my regular scheduled broadcast Tuesdays. So those of you who don't know, let's just do some house cleaning because I'm on the way out the door. Is there any more questions in respect to the case? Otherwise, I'll probably receive a phone call that's going to cut this short. Tonight, I will be hosting a Zoom So what we call it, a Zoom watch party for the presidential debate. It will begin at 8:30 um, Eastern time. Y'all figure out what it is on your time. So that's 7:30 Central and 5:30 um, whatever the other people is Pacific time. If you want to be included in that, just send me an email and I'll send you the link. I was gonna come live and then drop the link and then close it down, but I'm not doing all that drama. I will also put the link on the community wall, my community wall, because I have one for those who want to join us. The reason why we're moving it to a Zoom watch party is for copyright reasons. And following the debate, we will then shift it to the live environment for discussion. And those that want to drop off and only be in the chat over here can. Those that want to stay on the Zoom and be part of the live can. So that's how I've decided to operate that discussion. So we will be live after the debate discussing what we saw and how we feel about what we saw. All are welcome to participate. You can do it during, or you can come in the YouTube feed afterwards. The choice is yours. I will not be well, no, I might record. I might record. I have to think about it. I might record the debates. I don't think I have to record the debate, so I probably won't be recording the Zoom session. I'll give that more thought, but that's it. Remember, my schedule here on Mo Knows is Tuesdays 7 a.m., Fridays 7 a.m. So let me just go through it. Tuesdays 7 a.m., Wednesdays 7 p.m., um, Fridays 7 a.m., Saturdays is every other Saturday, 7 a.m. That's for Saturday. And then there is the Sunday worship as warranted. And the Sunday worship is when I normally pay close attention to the chat because people want to war. So we be at war with the chat. And that's when I get the most effective bang to really reading the chat and paying specific attention to the chat so that everyone feels incorporated in the discussion. Uh, thank y'all. This has been a beautiful event for me. As I continue to move forward in my activities, I am at peace. Um, I did take a moment to review. So this is in my personal YouTube experience. I've taken a moment to review some hateful comments and or videos that I put out there. And this is my final response on an unpleasant experience. When you are well intentioned and when you stand on the side of truth, I have no regrets for offering to assist. The only issue that's at bay was that I was assisting someone who needed more affection than I could give. This competition, when from a person's personal life, when you are isolated in your personal life and you do not have relationships that support you in your physical, that means like I can go into the next room and sit down and have a conversation with my daughter. I can go downstairs and speak to my neighbors that live in the building that I know that I've met. I can walk down the street and have a pleasant conversation with anybody. Y'all saw the video the other day. The dude wanted to trash. You understand? When you have a personality that is of a loving, hold on a second, y'all. Okay, I begged that person's indulgence so that I could finish this out, right? Um, so there's no regrets for me participating. It's just the fact that uh, you can't help those people that are isolated. Monica Mo Justice, Monica, I don't require the love and affection of people in the cyberspace because I am comfortable in the skin I am. I am comfortable. I am filled. I don't need extra affection. I don't need to be the center of anybody's attention. I cover myself clearly enough. What I've seen is that, and you guys, I might find the video and put it here. I've always impressed upon you guys that this mob mentality is crazy. There's a short story that I shared called The Lottery by Sheila, maybe it's Sheila Jackson. Um, you'll, if you go through my thing, you'll find it. But it's about a town who all the townspeople gather every year for a ritual. And the ritual is called the lottery. And what they do every year is they gather a person, they draw these pieces of paper, and whichever paper has the black dot on top of it, that's the person or that's the family. First, the head of the family goes forward and they pull the black piece of paper. That's the family that's selected. Then the whole the family members go forward and they draw for their families. And whoever then now has the black paper in the family is then stoned to death. And this is done, and the blood of whatever of the person's stone is used to um like mold the fields and stuff so that they would have a better harvest, right? This is a sick ritual. um and I covered it in two phases. I covered it as rituals, why I don't participate in rituals that have no meaning. And I covered it in another stance to talk about how people enjoin in a group mentality or a mob type mentality just because everyone else is there and they don't want to be outcasted. I've seen that several times here on the internet where there are people who want to belong to one group or the other, or they want to be involved in something, but they can't because if they're seen over in one space opposed to being in another space, it's an issue. People will know the difference, and they know the difference between right and wrong. People know a needy situation from an unhealthy situation. I was in an unhealthy situation, and I tried my best to conform to some of y'all jargon, like friends and so on and so forth, because when I said otherwise, people did not want to hear it. So, can I rebuke myself in certain places? Absolutely. And I have, because I will never again, ever again, waver from how I feel about something. But when I saw that it was unhealthy and I tried my very best without it becoming a public nuisance to not embarrass a person, it just didn't turn out that way. But if anyone believes that this recent campaign lobbied against me is going to prosper, you're absolutely wrong because the truth stands on my side. And anyone that is sitting beside someone and listening to anyone say, someone made me do something. Oh, a person made me do this. And a person made me do that. Y'all be careful. Because wait till they start saying, you made them do something. That is going to be phenomenal. Um, for other people that are around me, that this person's statements may make you feel uncomfortable or lie. Question me. You're always going to hear it from me straight. So I did see a video that was put out by Coleman. Um, and I watched Coleman's video yesterday and I was like, ooh, um, I'm you just came out of you were supposed to stay inside the VIP section. I'm gonna address something with you that I saw as of yesterday as too, and I hope that it my 5 minutes don't run up on me. Um, Coleman video had me alarmed, which made me go and watch some other videos because it was what was not said or what it was said about me that was surprising. But I haven't had a chance to speak to her on it. I just went to go look for myself because I be publicly mad at Coleman for a lot of things that she be involved in. But I could feel a hurt in her voice as she described me yesterday that I've never heard from her before. And that bothered me. So it made me go look. And then I found the video where somebody announced that she was getting a divorce. Okay? And this is what I'm going to say to that. That is cruel. On this YouTube, we share when you're on the back line speaking to somebody on your private phone, you often share things that are happening in your life. And before there was a relationship, other people had relationships here that they spoke on. Because because you can tell a person it's not a good time in that person's life to be discussing that person. So what I'm saying is, I said several times, because Coleman was being accused of being the problem, I was saying this is not a good time to deal with her in her life. She's got stuff going on. If somebody makes an inference from there, I can't be held accountable to it. But maybe I needed not to even say a person's have challenges in their life. A lot of you have challenges in your life that I'm aware of. Understand your confidence were there. This person has watched me on this YouTube. Most of the time, I'm very transparent. What I say in the dark, I say in the light. The light being here, so it's been said here before. So that's about it. Queen Miko, I appreciate your sentiments. I appreciate Ms. G's video that she did. That's why I put them on my community wall the other day, because it's good to have people rally behind you, right? Um, and I appreciate that you know that I'm a good person or you believe that I'm a good person. Um, I'm gonna say this. This is not anybody's battle to engage in. And I would ask y'all not to, out of not that you don't have a right to stand up and speak up for the channel that you support in the same way that these other people do, right? You guys, influencers here, we're not cult minded people, we're independent thinkers. That's important. Don't become like them. You're not cult members. I'm not building a cult here. I'm not sending you my body parts for you to be invested in me. I'm not trying to mind fuck you, as other people say, because they've been mind fucked. Okay? We're not doing that here. So at the end of the day, we'll just keep doing what we're doing because we're doing the things that guide our spirits. We're speaking in the language that guides us. And that's all that matters. It's not going to change. I have the same influences that I've had all along. The only issue that came to my problem was getting involved in this matter. For the most part, influencers were not on board, and that became an issue. I don't need the love and approval of everyone out here. I don't. I just work on what I need to work on here. And I speak on the issues that I need to speak on here. And I'm covering the content that I want to cover here. That situation could have been content if one makes it their content. A person who wants to go from panel to panel and explain relentlessly what occurred when they made a foolish decision of the heart, it's not a place for here. You understand? I believe that as this shit has emerged, people are finding their solace. Folks that were no longer speaking to each other are. And if your hate for me drives these relationships to men, then more power to you guys. More power to you guys. The people that have hurt me or have aimed to hurt me the most still exist. I, it has never changed for me. And that's it. Hopefully, that provides the end of it all. The road to justice is hard when people have no expectations of what justice looks like. If one wants to talk or speak on my personal life, they've been given the permission to do so here on the YouTube. So, no, I know they called out the influencers, and I truly understand that, and I truly understand why people responded. But the influencers or the people, the circle of influence, because we've shortened it down to being the influencers, right? But it was the circle of influence, which means that it was the whole group of us in unison were talking on issues, and it just turned out that it evolved into a name for a group of people that met at a certain time and discussed issues freely. But it's always been an open place where influencers can go wherever they want to go, be wherever they want to be, see whatever they want to see. All right, so that's the end of this conversation. I look forward to seeing you guys tonight for the debate. This is Mo, and I've got to go.